Enjoy 1% merchant commission when you accept Lanka Pay cards. Contact these banks today.
Welcome to Times Online Interviews. Today we have President's Counsel Viraj Dayaratna, Chairman, the Securities and Exchange Commission. Welcome, Mr. Dayaratna. Mr. Dayaratna, why are you leaving?
Coming to the end of my term has been a busy time.
Yes. Generally, the SEC is considered as a hot seat. How has it been for you?
Well, at the time I was asked to take over. As you said, it was known to be a hot seat. But fortunately for me, I didn't find it hot.
When you started at the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2019, you were faced with a lot of challenges, especially with the advent of COVID-19. How did you navigate this challenge?
Well, it's true, Durutu started with a huge challenge. It was just, I think, 2 months just about 2 months into my term. COVID, totally unheard of situation. We had to face that situation, and so there was a challenge. Not that I think I have said this before. It's not that we closed the market. A market couldn't be opened. I would like to put it that way, because the infrastructure was such that all the end-to-end operations of the market could not take place without a human presence. So with the lockdowns, with the strict curfews that were imposed, it was not possible to conduct a fair market.
Yes.
So it was a very tough call to make, and we deliberated on that. We had a lot of discussions with the Colombo Stock Exchange, and we felt, well, the market could not be kept open. So that, I think, for about 3 weeks the market couldn't function, and well, what happened thereafter is history.
Mr. Dayaratna, when the market was closed, you, with the stock exchange, came to a decision to digitalize the Colombo Stock Exchange, and you were successful. Have you completed all 3 phases?
We did, Durutu, at the time we had discussions with the Colombo Stock Exchange as to how digitalization actually should take place.
Yes.
We realized that it was a huge task, but what I told them was, don't think of doing everything at the same time. Let's phase it out. And so we took stock of what had to be done and identified 3 phases. First was, okay, what do we do in order to keep the market going? The frills and creases can come later. So that's exactly what we did. The first phase was to be completed within 3 months, and I'm happy to say within 4 months we completed it. Then the second phase we brought more additions, and then with the third phase we finished it.
Okay. So how receptive has the market been to digitalization?
I had the fullest cooperation of all stakeholders. Durutu, nothing can be done without the cooperation of all parties. So I must say they embraced it. They gave their fullest support.
Your mantra seems to be appointing joint committees, and you appointed a joint committee for digitalizing the stock market. How has that been?
I appointed a joint committee comprising of members of the SEC and the CSE.
Yes.
And the other stakeholders, the broker community, they gave their fullest cooperation, because they also had to do several changes to their back offices. The banks had to cooperate. So it was actually with the cooperation of all parties that we were able to make it a reality.
Mr. Dayaratna, you introduced a committee called Committee on New Products. The Colombo stock market has been talking about vanilla products like short selling till the cows come home. You know, for the last 2 decades at least. What is so difficult about implementing products like this?
Yeah, so it's a question of having the legal framework in place, Durutu, which I know you need to talk about these things, and you need to see an end to them. But it's easier said than done. The legal framework has to be brought in place, and we need to identify as to how practically these things can happen.
Yes. Yes.
Because sometimes you prepare these frameworks and when you put them into practice, there can be difficulties. So that is where the framework has to be sound. But I'm happy to say, how it happens is initially the SEC and the CSE talk with each other, they develop the initial framework, then it comes to the SEC, we grant in principle approval and then send it back to the CSE for the final framework to be prepared. So that process has taken place, and actually not only with regard to covered short selling, but with regard to many other products, we have given in principle approval, and as you said, the joint committee that was appointed has made a lot of headway, and a lot of products will see the light of day in the near future.
That is indeed good news. However, Mr. Dayaratna, when we started the Colombo Stock Exchange over 3 decades ago, we were considered as above par with our regional counterparts. Introducing these types of products now may look like we have also been quite late in introducing these. We may be considered as an also ran in this situation. What is your take on this?
Yeah, so Durutu, I wouldn't fully agree with what you said. Yes, we have been talking about these products for a long time, and they are late to come, no doubt. But we need to know whether it is good for our market, whether it's the right time. Are we late? Will they be obsolete? It's better if they had come earlier, but better late than never. I think it's right about the time. Now with digitalization, we have more investors coming into the market, the ease of trading and so on. So I think it's the right time. But it's just that we need to ensure that they come in and keep coming in.
You have given principal approval for products like crowdfunding. This is a very avant-garde product. What do you think is the appetite for such a product in this market?
No, I think there will be an appetite. I'm actually happy to say we are finalizing the rules. Just the other day the rules were given to me for me to have a look at it. I've had a look at it, and unfortunately Commission may not be able to approve it because I'll be here just for another 2 days. But I'm going to finalize it. It's up to the next Commission to approve it. There will be an appetite because finding capital is a huge problem in Sri Lanka. And for small time entrepreneurs, I think that will be a huge relief, I would say.
Mr. Dayaratna, how has the delivery versus payment system performed?
Yeah, so here again it was something that had been spoken of for a long time.
Very long time.
And so it was implemented last year along with the margining model that we finalized. So that reduces to a great extent the post-trade settlement risk. Actually, I'm happy to say something else that was spoken of at the same time was the setting up of a central counterparty.
Which is my next question. How is the central counterparty system coming along?
And let me answer that, if you don't mind, without hearing the question. Yeah. So I have appointed a joint committee to finalize matters with regard to the setting up of a CCP. They have made a lot of headway. Actually, a model was finalized. The Colombo Stock Exchange has called for EOIs, and I think they have even called for bids. They have identified a particular party as well, and the expectation is that it will be in place, if not the first quarter of this year, latest by the second quarter of this year, we will have a CCP in place. So Durutu, to fully answer your question, we are going to go way beyond a DVP.
Okay. Mr. Dayaratna, what of the demutualization bill?
Yeah, so I am a little sad that we couldn't complete that task. Our expectation was soon after the new law. Actually, my target was 1 month after the new law to have the demutualization bill ready and for it to be given to the policymakers to be taken up in Parliament. It's not that I'm trying to blame anybody, but it was beyond our control. The stakeholders wanted to look at the bill and propose changes, and there was some, I think, agitation about, or I would say concern about the share allocation when the demutualization takes place. That probably was one of the concerns they had. But what I said was, well, don't worry too much about that, let's finalize the bill. There was a draft bill in place which had actually gone to Parliament, so it was just a question of sprucing it up. But unfortunately, I think the share allocation concern that the stakeholders had, not the SEC, delayed things, and very unfortunate that we couldn't finalize that.
Yes. Mr. Dayaratna, you are leaving a legacy as the chairman who implemented a new Securities and Exchange Commission Act.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to call it a legacy, but well, the new act is in place. Durutu, there are several pluses in the new act. Main amongst them is the regulatory the power that has been given to the SEC. More offences have been identified. When I say more offences, there was this umbrella of offences, but now they have been categorized properly, brought into the act, separately identified. The ingredients have been spelled out. So the punishments that can be imposed, the sentences and the fines that the court can impose have been enhanced, all with a view to preventing market misconduct. So that is one of the salient points. Then there is provision in the law itself for more products to be introduced, more the infrastructure to come in. As far as settlement is concerned, the clearing house has been identified as a market institution, the provision, the manner in which clearing ought to take place, the rules that will govern entities, the stakeholders, all of that has been clearly spelled out. And let me conclude by saying there was a misconception at the time the act was to be introduced that it's going to be a draconian piece of legislation, that it will make it so much difficult for stakeholders to get on with their work. And I said at that time, no, that won't happen. And then again it was said by certain quarters that administration of the law will be a Herculean task. No, we have finalized all the rules that had to be brought in. All of that have been gazetted. Unfortunately, again, we'll have to leave behind the listing rules. We couldn't gazette it again due to no fault of ours. But again, I'm not trying to fault anybody because it was a difficult task. That is almost at the tail end. So if that comes in, the administration of the act, whatever that was necessary to have in place in order to properly administer the act, will be there. So I can say a lot of things, but I think that would suffice for the moment.
Absolutely. When you implemented the task force for better regulation, what aspects did you consider?
Yeah, so better regulation means, Durutu, I firmly believe in predictability and consistency. Rules have to be clear, and there has to be consistency on the part of the regulator as well as to how those rules will be implemented. And also in law we say every rule has an exception. So in certain situations we will have to grant exemptions from compliance, maybe for valid reasons. So all of that, those guidelines have to be internally available, so that the respective divisions will know how to carry out their task. So we have brought about that at the SEC. So there should be there will be predictability, and I hope there will be consistency as well.
Going forward, how is the regulator looking at giving credit exposure to the stockbrokers?
No, so credit exposure, there are the limits, Durutu.
Yes.
The rules spell out.
Yes.
So it's a question of monitoring it to ensure that one does not go above those limits that have been set. It has been somewhat of a thorny issue because credit is required. You need to grant credit, but the exposure is something that you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
And we have had no issues so far. And I hope it's not only up to the regulator, it's up to the stakeholders, the brokers, the margin providers. They have to be mindful of that. And also, one piece of advice to investors: it's necessary for you to obtain credit, but know your limits.
Mr. Dayaratna, another thorny issue is that the Colombo stock market is a very nascent market, and we really need awareness. That is why many traders and investors are taking more credit than they can afford. In this situation, how has the regulator and the market operator, the Colombo Stock Exchange, conducted awareness programs and things like that?
Yeah. There again, I think we are talking too much about these joint committees, but there is again a joint committee with regard to creating awareness and education, Durutu. We have identified a lot of programs. The awareness campaigns are going on. Of course, with the COVID situation, we had to limit them. We have our own social media network, and through which we disseminate information. Then we have seminars along with the CSE. So awareness is critical. We are conscious of that, and a lot is happening, Durutu, although many may not know. And one other significant development is that as far as the school children are concerned, we have spoken with the relevant authorities, and with the next revision in the syllabus, the school syllabus, the capital market will be introduced as a subject, and we have volunteered to give the content as well as train the teachers. And we are happy that our proposal was taken on board. Well, we were told it will happen in 2023, so we are just at the beginning of 2023, and I hope that change will take place this year.
Are the stockbrokers adhering to the guidelines issued by the Securities and Exchange Commission?
Well, I would say yes. It's a question of Durutu, ensuring that rules are made in a way that they can comply. Why do we need rules? We need rules to ensure that certain things happen, that the dangers are taken away, and that actually we decided, we were talking about this at the last commission meeting as well, when we finalized the trading participant rules. The broker rules will now be known as trading participant rules. Rules are there for a purpose, either to achieve something or to prevent something. So the rules have been made in consultation with the stakeholders. The brokers were consulted before we prepared those rules. The Colombo Stock Exchange engaged in that exercise. So the rules are prepared in consultation with all stakeholders. So one cannot therefore complain that it's difficult to comply. So as the regulator, we will watch out for compliance, and so far I would say we have no complaints.
Mr. Dayaratna, we are a disclosure-based market, but we still see directors of companies issuing disclosures on their trading later than what is stipulated. These are people holding high offices in companies. What does this say about the Colombo stock market?
Yeah, so as you very rightly said, Durutu, the disclosure requirements are there. They are in the listing rules, which have been spelled out in black and white. So actually this is something that we have taken up with the CSE. It's their rules, so they have to monitor compliance. So there have been instances where there has not been compliance, and we have brought those situations to the attention of the CSE, And at a meeting we had recently with the board of directors of the stock exchange, we told them that there has to be some mechanism by which these non-disclosures and other activities will have to be flagged. So they agreed that they will have some, they will improve their supervision functions and ensure that timely disclosures are made. And then of course as a regulator, non-disclosure and maybe insider trading, as you know, is an offence. So that is why, as I said earlier, the new act ensures has widened the scope of the offence of insider dealing, and that way we have created a deterrent. So I hope it in fact will act as a deterrent, and people will be mindful that the consequences will be severe.
Let me address the elephant in the room. You are known as the only chairman who implemented a barrage of enforcement actions against market offenders. But we are still awaiting the big guns. What about it?
Yeah. Durutu, there was a backlog of investigations. From the time I came, I told them that is our core function. Regulation is our core function, and we have to ensure that we do that duty properly. Well, there were problems, as I said earlier, the COVID prevented officers from attending office, so there were delays. But ultimately, we gave them deadlines. We had to do that in order to ensure that the backlog was cleared. I'm happy to say the backlog, in fact, about 80% of the backlog has been cleared, because we set a December 31st, 2022 deadline. So reports have been finalized. We were able to consider most of them, and I wouldn't say, to me there are no big guns and small guns. If anybody has committed an offence, steps will be taken to deal with them. So we have taken steps, Durutu. Again, we have taken a very pragmatic approach. If we have felt that certain matters should be compounded instead of resorting to court proceedings, we have taken that step. If we have felt that there were borderline cases, we have not gone as far as instituting legal proceedings. Maybe depending on the circumstances, we have warned quite a few of them. So we have taken different measures commensurate with the conduct of those parties. And I am happy with the progress we have been made. I would have been happier if we were able to do these things earlier, but we have set things in motion, and I'm quite happy with the progress we have made.
Mr. Dayaratna, it is really up to your successor, isn't it?
Well, let me not answer that question.
What is your hope for the Colombo stock market?
Well, market is doing well. Durutu, 2021, I am told, was the best year for the CSE, and 2022 we have had volatility. Well, you know, with the situation we are in, the economic situation, I don't think anybody can complain the way the market is performing. We have had the best year for foreign inflows, 2022. That is something that the market can be proud of. I hope that continues. So market will bounce back, Durutu. Well, the infrastructure has been improved and should keep improving. If these products also can come to the market, I think the market ought to do well.
So, Mr. Dayaratna, thank you very much for setting the infrastructure right for the Colombo Stock Exchange. Thank you very much for joining us.